Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us here tonight. We're going to go ahead and point towards getting started. My name is Pierce Paul Kriesman. It's my pleasure to serve as the Executive Director of the American Center of Research. For those of you joining us in person, we are so happy to have you here with us this evening. It's truly our pleasure to have you here with us, whether you're on Zoom. We're very happy to have you with us on Zoom, watching on YouTube live, or here in person. We are excited to continue with our fall lecture series. This is our first in-person lecture series here at ACOR. For those who don't know us, we're excited that you're joining us in some capacity. Glad that you found us. Our mission is advancing knowledge of Jordan and the interconnected region, past and present. And so one of the ways we try to do that is through having these spectacular talks. And I'm just going to keep building it up, Bilal. So you have to deliver and these really interesting, engaging talks about topics that are meaningful and curious and that hopefully spark some curiosity in you. And then afterwards, we'll have an opportunity to sit and stand together and be social. And I know it feels like it's been too long all the time when we actually get back together to do these things and socialize a little bit. We've just had our most recent newsletter published. There's a copy on the table for you if you don't already have one. Anybody who would like to keep current with us, please don't hesitate to contact us, acor@acorjordan.org, and we can get you on our mailing lists and things along those lines so that you always know about these opportunities when they come. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to our Associate Director, Jihad Haron, who's going to introduce our speaker for the evening. And then afterwards, we'll take a couple of questions at the end. And then I always like to do it as socially as possible. And then we'll adjourn and go on out and have some beverages and snacks and such and enjoy one another's company. So, ahlan wa sahlan, thank you for being here. Jihad?
Thank you, Principal. Good evening. And we would like to welcome you all in to our lecture today. First of all, I would like to welcome our colleague, Dr. Bilal Kharisat. He is the Commissioner of the Petra Archaeological Park in the BTTRA Petra Authority. Dr. Bilal has got his PhD in geoarchaeology from India, and he got his MS in archaeology and heritage from Belgium. So it seems that he was traveling from east to west, and mainly his PhD and his specialist in geoarchaeology, and his interest always was in the application of scientific methods to heritage and archaeology and documentation and management and GIS. Dr. Bilal is a well-known scholar, an assistant professor at Hashamat University. He worked and he was part of many international projects. I do recall the well-known renowned project at Petra, the Sea Stability Project with UNESCO. It was one of the main really projects until now known in the region of how to save one of the best monuments in the region, Petra, and to safeguard the sea itself. So Dr. Bilal already he submitted many articles, and of course he contributed to many conferences. And today we are looking forward to learn more about game boards, chipboards, and to know if they are similar to us when it comes to games, or they have a different mindset or mentality, or already we are inheriting all our game boards from that time. Dr. Bilal, please, the floor is yours without any further ado.
Thank you all. I would start with thanking ACOR administration and the team of ACOR for allowing me to speak here. And I'm really blessed and happy to be here with you. My talk actually was suggested by Jihad to speak on, and Matthew stressed on me to speak on that. I spoke in this topic in 2004, nearly about 20 years back. And this was really something which I want to start with. Good things when Jihad, he talked about what really games are, what really our mindset of games. Actually, I was really, I'm talking myself in a general way. I was really very, I would say, tough prehistorian, which means that I was doing a geoarchaeology for prehistory, and I was always thinking that people were just flicking stones worrying about how to hunt, how to gather plants, and how to have shelter. And that was really their life. But because that was really serious prehistory. But if we look really to life, we see that those people, they have a lot of time more than what we have today. In a daytime, I'm saying. Their life was not just the whole day flicking stones or just worrying about their food as we do today. We work 8 hours by government rules, and we have 2 hours of transportation, and we have some hours to sit with family to eat. All these rules, social rules, which we have it, did people in prehistory or in the ancient time, they had this time? I doubt that. So there is a large span of time, which I'm talking about myself as a prehistorian, we never thought of that, the daytime, what people they were doing in the daytime, really. Because when we talk about ancient people, we talk in a lump sum of time, but not really what they do in a daytime. So I was doing really serious prehistory and geoarchaeology, more into stones. What are the source of these stones? We have to adapt to technology, especially the one which is today, new one. So forgot. I was really thinking of sourcing material, of analyzing phosphate analysis to understand human activity, too much in XRD analysis of pottery. I was really serious doing that. And one day my friend, he asked me to help him in doing mapping in a place called Hampi, which is a World Heritage Site in central India, which belonged to a Vijayanagara Empire, which is really a very famous site. And I met 2 professors, Michael Michel and John Fritz, who were really working in Hampi, and they have many publications on that. And in that day, they introduced me to what really a game board is. And when I was helping my friend in mapping the site, I started really observing game boards. And when I came to Jordan, that was when I started my research in Petra in 2000 about, I've been introduced to Professor Talal, who to him I really give a big thank, and to the Hashemite University, and for ACOR, because at that time I was also an ACOR research assistant at that time in the project. So at that time, I have been asked to do mapping for Petra for conservation issues. And I went with the late Fawaz to do a surface mapping of the whole monument in Petra. And when I was in the field, I saw many game boards. I have asked, do you know what is this? People were not really aware in the early 2000s of what we are talking about, what we are looking about. And in 2004, when I give my presentation, one of my colleagues in Yarmouk University, he was really telling me, I thought you are a geoarchaeologist. Why you speak about game boards? I was really struck because at that time, no, not you, actually. I thought why people really, they don't take archaeological record serious, because for us, game boards are something for leisure, something for extra time. They are not serious like stone flaking or like hunting gathering. My single game was about hunting gaming, not really just spending time to play. In my presentation, I show you what games they do for us today and for our children. How much time we human now, we spend time in playing games, and how much the game market is of today. This is something normal, which is not abnormal. We human have really time to do something our mind need to do. So I want to stress in my talk today about how serious is really researching in game boards. And it is not only to understand what they were playing. It is beyond that. It is beyond what people they were playing. I'm going to show you many type of games which the Nabataean they played. And this is Fortunately, it was preserved because most of it is curved into the rock. Many games in Africa, they were played on sand, even in Arabia. They are not preserved. We are lucky here, we have them in Petra, they are curved in the rock, but in many places in the world, games were played just on sand, just by using fingers and making games. We don't have really proper record of that. So I want to highlight this. I want to make my talk to people who are not really archaeologists, who wants to know about the past or human time. And this is my idea of my talk. And I want again to thank my colleague in ACOR for inviting me and to put me back into academic talk, because in the last 1.5 years, I was just talking with people organizing site and trying to protect the site. How to الارو شغال. Okay, الارو مش شغال. Okay. Just for people who doesn't, just to orient yourself, for Petra is about 237 kilometers from Amman. It is a site which is been a capital of the Nabatean people. The Nabatean were a pastoralic society who came from Arabia, and they made their capital in Petra, and it was flourished at that time. Their empire reached up to the north to Basra and Palmyra in the edge, and to the south of Madain Saleh. It was really a big kingdom. This sad image of our research with Professor Talal documenting monuments in Petra. My image has a blue color on it. The blue color is not a false color. Actually, these are dots of monuments. They are monuments, but they are in dots. The intensity of these dots shows these blue line as they are really shade of color. No, this is what really what really we pass through, what we have recorded. And we have recorded everything about these monuments, about their architecture, their state of conservation, photographs, and also some measurement. Here, I think I should also mention, at that time, we had people volunteer from JICA, which really we are thankful to also. Many of these blue lines are game boards. At that time, when I first time showed Professor Talal about what I am recording, he was very busy about salt in the facade. And I'm coming to him with a flat of paper. I'm talking about holes in a rock. And he was really not very much interested in the beginning, but then he realized how important that we have to record these monuments. I would say those features. So as I told that, most of the game boards in Petra are curved on the rock surface. People, they use the rock surface to walk, to sit, to move, to pass. So they are really very fragile. Why? Because they are in the way of people in a certain places where people always gather, even today. The largest number of game boards we have in Petra are just in front of the Sikh, just before entering to the Sikh, which means today, if you want to see the maximum number of tourists who go to the site after the treasury, there are people who are just trying to enter to the site from the Sikh. It's the same story. So people moving in the same area, and these, I would say that these fragile records are existing still today. And the sandstone is really, especially in that area, which is made of carbonatic sandstone, which is really friable. And when you walk on it, you really cause damage into the rock. So most of these game boards are located in area where the site is really a walking area or activity area, so they are in danger. So I want to, with you, to share that how important to preserve these elements. Let's see in the end of my talk if we think that there is a priority to do that, or it is not a priority. It's more a priority to think of the palace tomb or other things to think of. So many research happen. I'm not the first to talk about this. Research in game boards started in 1928. and there are many nice textbooks written on that. And there is lots of social and anthropological study about games in general, gaming and how people involved in gaming. And there is really very, very, very large literature on that. But in general, all these literatures, they stress on how important playing game is for our society. How important this for our research, how it's important to understand each other, how important to talk about people who doesn't exist anymore. It's only their record which is existed. This is one of the picture, I put it in purpose. It is from the Nubian archaeology. This game is what we play in the south in Jordan generally, is the top, but in a different form, in a different number of squares and in different manners of playing, and it is played on the sand surfaces. After these people they finish, you don't have any trace of the game boards. When I sent my first presentation to Acre, the in charge of my presentation, she put game pieces. I'm going to talk about game pieces. Then I realized how important also to tell people what are the segment of the research in game boards. Studying and working in pieces itself is a full research direction. If you talk about the chess pieces, it's a culture, it's a cognitive study, it's art, it's a social impact. The Chinese chess is different from Indian chess. The Indian chess is different from the Southeast Asian Chinese, it's different from the Western. The stones are different by curving, by material, by style, even by how they play, how they place them for playing. It's a big culture when we talk about only the piece of the game pieces. So each segment, each component of games, I want to explain to you. Nabateans were a trade crossroad. Petra itself, it's a crossroad for trade, and this is really well known and well recorded, which means that there are many cultures, many type of people, many kind of people, many kind of culture which pass into Petra. So we are lucky in Petra to have these are carved in rock. There are many people who still they have them, like in Egypt, for example, most of the game boards are made on wood or leather or sometimes in granite blocks. But in Petra, we are lucky we have them, at least what we have, they are carved into the rock. The Nabateans, they use these game boards, they play the game boards, and I found that they have also modified the games to fit their environment, to fit their mindset. How I am going to reach to that, I will show you how we can prove it by how games are developed in the site. Because we have games which are started, like when we talk about Mankala. Mankala is a very popular game. It played in a wide area in the world. The Chinese played Mankala about 3,000 years back. And in Africa, Mankala was played in older, and just now I was talking with Dr. Zidane and Dr. Gary about the Mankala in Ain Ghazal. It's the oldest in Jordan. It's about 8,000 years back. So Mankala is a game played everywhere. But do we have specialized Mankala? Yes, in Petra we have specialized. All the Mankala they have a place where they keep stones. In Petra we don't have really. We have only the holes without a place to keep the stones. It's different. It's something adapted to the environment, something adapted to. I'm not going to speak how people they play games, because this is especially ethnographic study, which is not really my specialty. And this is my talk today is also to push especially young generation to think of research direction. One of that is to do really true ethnographic study, ethnoarchaeology into games. Because in Jordan games, we talk about traditional games, but we don't talk about the continuity from archaeology to what we play today. We don't really have a sequence. I know there is a student from from Yarmouk University in 2005. Smadi نسيت اسمها الأولاني. She made the MA in game boards from Qais and in Jerash about Manqala and some other game. So the games have different style of playing. Different, some people they call it mechanism, and some people they call it themes. Nowadays, people who program games, they talk themes, and they have big argument about themes and techniques of playing. There's really big talk about, should I start with the technique or I should build the theme before? But games actually in the past was a true environment reflection. I'm talking about Nabataeans because my research in Nabataean in Petra mostly. People, they were traders. They were into carving of rocks. They were in geometry. Most of the architecture in Petra is based on geometry, though it is organic, but mostly built on geometry. Even the tombs, they are geometry. The burials are geometry. Most of the things Nabataean they did it geometrical, which means that mathematically they were really important to them to have really mathematical thinking. And games generally, who makes games and who play games, most of their thinking is a linear mathematical thinking. It's not really diffusional thinking, as many people they try to analyze their theory. So we have some games which are oriented about luck, some games oriented about how to defeat in a competitional way, in a strategic way, how to defeat your opponent, the guy who is in front of you. And we have games which are based on luck, purely luck. Like when you throw the dice, you have two choices: to move in a very smart way or to move enforced to move by that number. So some of it is based on luck and some of it based on how you really arrange your movement. This is two slides just to show you how important games today in the market. There is about more than, in 2022, we talk about $200 billion are spent globally on games, which is really something big. I'm talking that amount when it's sometime it reached to about, I would say, 1/4 of the world agricultural product. See how much it is important. In Japan, especially, the amount of money the government invests in gaming is huge. This is from United States, talks about how much compared to time and money. I'm talking about myself at home. In a holidays, my children, they spend from 4 to 5 hours sitting in front of today's PlayStation or Xbox. And when sometimes they play in turn, and when they have off time, they go to the mobile to play, to continue with something else. It's crazy how much really we spend, but something really important in the age. I was thinking that kids who play games more. Actually, no. Elder people who play really more games. Nowadays, I'm talking about nowadays. This is socially, we have to understand it. We have to understand it. How much time I have and how much really ability to play. And I think elder people, they have that too. Children, they don't have all the time. Sometimes they go to school. They are, as my kids, they have specific time to play. But elder time, anytime they just switch their mobile. I'm sure some of you, they in a daytime, you just switch your work and you go to games just to change your mind, to change your setting. Or this is very, very common now. What games really can help us to understand in the past? This is very important. If we look at it, we can think of pottery. we can think of stone tools, we can think of most of what we work on. Games, they have advantage to tell us about the cognitive scale of people. When you are in a problem, how to solve it, how to think of the thinking process, how to start thinking about. Games can help you to do that. Games is a source of creativity. This is what will see from the slide, how the Nabatean, they start to invent new games. They have many advantages in our life. And one of it is education. Nowadays, education are made in the early stage of education by gaming, playing games and learning. This was in the past, actually. When people, they sit to next each other, they learn. They learn not from school. They sit and they see how people they play, and they know how to move. They observe and they start to develop learning from that stage, though they are not really involved directly in play, but as people who observe, they are really a source of learning, many things. It's very important for us for talking about cultural exchange. We have some games, I don't think we have it very popular before the Nabatean in the Roman world, but I found lots of it in Petra. Which means that though the relation was not really very good, but the connection was very strong between the Roman world and the Nabatean world. Though it was built on tax paying, built on not liking each other, but still there are really exchange of culture, which games really showed that. This slide has many things to talk about how games are important for us. This is very important about research. Games are not the board. I'm going to talk about the boards only. But actually games has many segments in that, which is each of it is a piece of research and a direction of research. And it tells you about the earlier slide also, about all the advantages of what we learn from games. We can learn about the players. We know that if the players are playing in team, if they were sitting, if they are quiet, if they are, you know, to have, for example, about 6 or 7 game boards in an area of 5 by 6 meters, which tells you that there are many people, they were playing in a very close area. And to do that, just like going into one of the cafes in downtown Amman who are playing Zahra, and you just see how people, they deal with each other about sound. Don't shout, please, it's quiet. And socially, it can tell you about the density of these games in one place, how really people, they were understanding each other and how they were really fitting in that small place. That means this society was really understanding each other. People, they were accepting each other. Even talks about when people invent, like what I have seen in Petra, about 16 type of games. That means people were really very smart. Generally, people, when they play games, they don't like to be in the same level. All game manufacturing company today, they have an icons, and they have a space for people to develop. Because they know that the game player, once they finish their game, they want to do something beyond that. And even the Nabatean, when they played certain games, they start fusing games, they start developing their own games, which means that they were really trying to produce more games. It tells us about the objectives. Sometimes I said that Nabateans, they were more into trades and they were good in calculation. We know from historical document that Nabateans, they were having always, all the time, 3 kind of coins in their pockets because they don't want to spend time exchanging money. When you do business with them, you don't really need to worry which coins you will deal with them because they have always 3 kind of coins, the Ptolemaic, the Roman, and the Nabatean coins. They were just doing business with you very fast. They were people who are really good in arranging things well. So the objective of games mostly was strategic and built on skills. this is what we are going to see. There's a piece about movement. This is a purely ethno-archaeological study, because there are live games today. People, they can go to them and they can really watch how people they play. I've seen one game for top in a YouTube, which is, I think, is very nice for people who doesn't know what is top. Top is really a game which has a root from the Nabatean time in South Jordan. And if you go and put top in the YouTube, you have that games. And there are some people from Hussein University who really played that game. And I have documented that 10 years back by the Abdul. They were playing on the site during the off time. They were just using a charcoal piece and they put on the rock and they used 2 stones and 4 sticks. And they were playing it they spend their time that way. There is referees and timekeepers. All games, mostly they have people to watch, to organize, to give rules. Otherwise, people always fight. By the way, the role of referees who watch football, nowadays especially, they know what is really the main role of the referee is not to make people fight about the point. So referees is a system, is an acceptance of rules. It's a person who can really makes the game played. So which means we talk about organized society. We talk about someone who really has a mature gaming in that. And this need lots of research, because I'm here talking about really physical game boards. These points I need more of ethnographic, more of deep study, but I'm talking this about to put that for research. You can really go. Rules can change. People who play games, especially cards, they know they sometimes they develop their own rules. Rules, they can change, but the main theme of the game is always preserved. So themes and rules can be really a piece of research in game boards. In Petra, where I found these games, I found that in 5 major contexts. And these contexts are very important, which was summarized from their density and their existence. The context, we have them in the open, flat, exposed surfaces in the site. And these games especially, they were played either early in the morning or in the evening time. During the midday, I doubt these games were played in Petra, which means that games location can tell us about timing and activity where people they might be existing at that time. Because to play games in the direct sun in an open is not really something feasible to spend time to enjoy actually, or play a game. We have games which they are in a places which are having a commanding view, especially in the edge of the cliffs and the mountain. And generally these games are found plenty. If you are in the central city of Petra, all the edges which are in top in Khubtha and Libyar and in the way to the monastery, all of them, most of them, they have games on the edge. Because people, they were overlooking and they were sitting in that area. And mostly these people who are in charge of looking at the area, maybe guards, maybe people who have their business to do that. But we have high density in the edge of the mountains and on the cliffs. We have games which are associated with staircases and paths to the area. For example, if you take the staircase from the theater towards the high place or place of sacrifice, you have many games in the way. Generally, these games are associated with people who are moving to that area. We have some of these games are in what today we stop to relax. Now we have restored the staircases, and we know that there are certain corners, people, they get tired and they want to rest. In these areas today, we have games, not in between of like which says that these areas were the same way they were dealt in the past, because the games can tell us where people they were resting at that time. And mostly this is related to Pilgrim, because the Labyrinth of Petra, which I recorded in 2003, and I think this is the first Labyrinth to be recorded in Jordan, actually, was in the way to the high place, in the place of sacrifice, which means that it has, Labyrinth has more into beliefs, more into rituals, and more into not only gaming, but it has more into ritual and religious thinking. There are games which are associated with the place of work. In many quarries, you know, there are many rock quarries in Petra. There are many games which are associated to those quarries, which means that during the quarry, maybe the workers, they have time to spend, to relax, or maybe to guard later in the evening what they have made of stone or what they have acquired. But there are time for people in this area to spend playing, which means that they are associated with their work. We have games which are associated with structures like temples, especially in the main doors, in the main staircase to the temple, and in the tombs. Most of the tombs which has a yard in front of it. After you are out of the tomb and you have some space, you have some games there. We have found many games in those, which means that this is, again, I have a crazy idea of Petra, which is not related to this. I don't think, and I don't believe there are tombs in Petra. Petra is not the city of dead. It's the city where the people live with the dead. We have houses, we have rooms for people, and people, they didn't mind to have their dead in the room. This is what really Petra. Petra is not really the whole, when you come from, this is my theory, by the way, it's not what I believe. I don't think that all what we see from these facades, they are tombs. Tombs are inside the wall, below the ground, and on the walls inside. But the main space of the room never been used. It was used by the Nabateans. The dead people either inside the walls as a locally or localist, people who are in Nabatean architecture, and or they were underground burials. That means the ground was flat, the wall was closed. The space is fully available for people to use. People in Peru, they put their dead for 4 months before they take them to the caves to put them. They keep their beloved one next to them, and they put food for 3 months, squatting position, and they put them in the house for 4 months before they take them to many people in Jordan before 200 years, they were burying their beloved one next door. They were not taking to a cemetery, or living with the dead is something is not in the Neolithic wife. The mother was keeping her child very close to her below the kitchen, not far really. Living with the dead is not in our conceptual thinking. That's why I think people in Petra were living in what we call tombs, because they were houses actually. So in many of these tombs, I would say back, because many archaeologists, they will not like what I'm saying. In front of these tombs, there are many games in front of these in the courtyard. There are games which are associated with waiting area. As I mentioned in the beginning of the Sikh, there are many games, and I believe that people, they were not allowed to the city directly. There was in the Sikh where we have the arch, I think there was a gate. I'm talking this from the games. I'm trying to interpret that from the games. Why? Because I have plenty of the games exactly in front of the Sikh. We have area called Asluh, which is in front of the Sikh, In that, if you go up, you can see how many game boards are available, which means that people, they were just waiting to their time to go to the city, to the Sikh. Otherwise, why I have so many game boards in front of the Sikh? Because there was enough time to play games. When you have enough time, if you have coming all the way from far countries to go to the city, why you want to spend time sitting and playing games unless you are not allowed to go straight? You have to wait. You have to sit in a cafeteria and have coffee and talk. Then you are allowed in. You are not really allowed directly to go to the city. This is what games tells me. There are waiting areas. So in front of the Sikh, there are these games cluster. From this context, we can interpret. This is again a piece of research for people to relate locations with function of these games. In our research, we have documented many type of games. We have seen many of these games, which I want to show you because I know that you want to see graphics more. In my presentation, I'll show exactly all this type. But most 4 type of games which we have, they are based on these themes or mechanism. They are either check or battle games where the one person try to finish the other person by, like we call, capturing stone or just to take over. We have a counter or race games where, just like Mankala, you try to run fast, then you can reach to the end points before the other person reach before you. Then we have align games where you have, like the OX we play, you have alignment where you are the fast you align your stones, then you are winner of a game. And we have a maze game where you put your finger somewhere and the one who reach fast to a point, then that person is. And these games, we all know these category of games, but this is what really we found in Petra. This is one of the games. I put the real image of these games with what are the pattern and style of these games. And I leave it for you to see the variety and to think of how people, they could play games. Like in Jordan here, there's a famous game called Dhamma, which is 8x8. And many people, they play it. And nowadays, it is more into digital also. People still, they play it in digital form. But Dhamma is a popular game, 8x8. Nabatean, they have 7x7. The Roman, they had 7x7. And they had 8x8. We have games 5x5. I don't know how they play it, but this is what we have found actually. We have games which are 7x5. Here I'm just giving one example of many. I'm not talking about a single. The only single slide I'm going to show for a game is the Labyrinth or the maze. But all of this, we have many repetition of these games, which mean they were popular. They were played everywhere in Petra. We have games which are mixed, 7x8. They are irregular games. And this is also, people should think how they were playing this kind of games. This is very close to Mankala. As I said, there is the difference between here, the size of the stones, because Mankala you need 13 hajar, 13 stones, which are really cannot fit into this. And they don't have a side pocket. In Mankala, you have something to keep your stone. Here, we don't have something. We don't know how they were playing this, but it's very close to Mankala. We have 6x2 and we have 7x2 of Mankala exist. We have 4x6. This is very close to Top. Top, the one I showed for the Nubians, and it is played in South Jordan. Top is generally played 8x4, what we play today. But in north of Arabia, they play 12, 4x12. In Nubia, they play 24. I don't know why this repetition and why each area has a different set of numbering. We have games of 7x4, 8x4, which is very popular to top, which we play here in Jordan, and 9x4 is common in north of Arabian, but I ask people in the south if they play 9x4. No one, people talk about sometime 12x4, but never 9. This is again for young people. This is really a research area where it can really have a good talk. We have 10x4 and we have 12x4. This is all in Petra. I'm talking about, when I talk about our culture here, we talk about Dhamma, chess, and Mankala. I'm talking about 18 kind of games play in that area. And this is what really preserved on the rock. Because when I talk to people, local people about what do you think the Nabatean, they were playing games, they were talking about many games which cannot be preserved in the rock. Like, for example, they have something they call it nagar, which is you keep stones above each other and you try to hit one stone by another, and there is full damage of the stones, or you can get rid of each stone at a time. 7 أحجار هذيك بطابة جديدة هاي، ما عندهم مش طابات بس كانوا يضربوا بحجر ومش كلهم، في عندهم لعبتين. They have 2 games, one where you have to hit all the stones and destroy the structure, and there are other game where you hit each stone by one, like you have to fall them, and if you make them all fall, you lose, you have to make them again back. So these games are still played, but they are not preserved in the records. This is also where people can really work in. We have 13x4 and we have 14x4. This is really mathematics. This really need people of computer to think, because really this is mathematic thinking. And I think this is we have this game 23x4. This is very close what the Nubian they play 24x4. This is amazing, like when you see. And here I think most of these games, they were played by 2 persons. But I think this kind of game, like Nubian, they play 4 people, 2, and a person can throw, then the second move, the third person observe. It has more teamwork than really a single individually playing. This is fused and combined games. This is really very strange and very, very important to have the 5x5, and you have, this is a continuity, which means that when the person reach to fusing games, it's just like a programmer of nowadays when they finish epic games stage 1, they want to go to stage 2 with their keys. It is something which is really telling us that the Nabatean, where they were developing their own games and they were fusing their game boards. We have very popular game nowadays, they call it guitar. You have 3 stones of different material, either paper or wood or stones or anything. And the first person who makes the 3 in one alignment, he's the winner or she's the winner. And how it is played stone by stone and step by step. We have the maze and the labyrinth. This is where people, they have to move in a direction to reach to the end. But this is a copy also of a labyrinth, which is found in the Mayonian palaces, found in Syria. It's found in many places in the world, and it was in the medieval time very popular in architecture. This is an example from the Greek copy of the labyrinth, or this is the one on top was found in a floor, which says that it's a game, and one is found in pottery and which means that it was more of ritual use than it is. We have many. If you put in Google ancient game boards, you can see many kind of boards which are existed. Most of them, they were repeated in Petra, but in a curved mood. We have temporary games, which I found people, Bedouins, they were playing, and I could recognize from their weathering rates, what are the new, what are the old. One of the challenge is if someone tell me, are you sure about their date? I'm sure about their location, like the one in front of the Sikh, they are contemporary to the activity in the Sikh. And mostly the Sikh activity ended by, I would say that with the Roman, because during the Byzantine time was, the north area was more open to the side than really coming from the area of Wadi Musa and the Sikh. How the games were curved, we have a game which was really fresh curved but never been played, where you can still see the chiseling mark. You can see the mark of the chisel. And this is actually before finishing. And when you see these square are becoming round, you can realize how much these play were. You can recognize what are fresh games and what are really well and very much repeatedly played from the edge, how the edge was preserved on the side. But this is the style of making it. It was really neatly patterned with nice curving, smooth curving in the rock. This is my team who were working with me. They were just making with charcoal tab and they were playing it. They were telling me what you see, what we play. Games are very popular now, especially with old people in Jordan. Salt is very famous for Mankala. They have annual competition for Mankala. In Zarqa, in the lanes inside Zarqa, there are many people who play games. In Irbid, in the old Irbid area, there are many people who play still games. There are very big opportunity for ethnographic study and recording proper how they get the stone, how they curve from where they buy, how the wood. There is lots of opportunity for that. I'll talk about location. This is just to orient you about some of these locations. Maybe when you go back to Petra, you can see. And I would advise people who want to see games in Petra, as soon as you just enter the main gate, just when you enter to the main gate, you find blocks in the right side before going to the horse area. Just go above these, the first rock, you will find a game board. And if you go to the toilet in the visitor center, not the one in the main building, but the one with behind the shops, just there is a small area in between the rocks, just below the hotel's rooms. You can see 3-4 games are just in front of you. There are games everywhere in Petra, but you have to look at them. As I told, these are very fragile. They are on surface. They need really a special care. And I think if you ask me as PAP commissioner, what do you, because I know this, my first question will be asked how to preserve them. I said that proper documentation, I think the first priority for their manufacture, their existence, where they are, and to look about their cluster and to think of how to preserve cluster-wise is better. But most of these are curved in sandstone, which is a friable rocks. And I think we need very fast move into that. Weathering is especially the one exposed, the one on the right side. This is where in front of the toilets in the visitor center. We think of preserving them, putting some marks around them or something. It makes them more obvious, more visible to people. Sometimes they get more damage. Sometimes they can really target it if you really, because now people, they don't, many of them, they are preserved because people, they don't really recognize them well, but they're right to see them actually. I'm going to place one in the museum to just make people aware of this important segment of the Nabataean day life activity. This is actually very important also. I'm happy if someone can cooperate with me into that. I know that there are some people who are good in GIS. Very important to think of the game orientation, location, and the sun angle. If we do that, we can segment games which they are played in winter, in summer, in the morning, in the evening, and in the midday. Just by doing locational analysis and trying to study the sun angle, I was always thinking of doing that, but I never did it. But if there's someone who can encourage me to do that, I will be happy to do that. But it's very important. In that, we can really understand many things about the game boards just by locational analysis and the sun angle to that. The cluster orientation and cultural exchange. I talk about many kinds of games, and if you heard of my talk, I'm talking about Nubia, North Arabia. There are many options to talk about exchange for cultural exchange. Thank you, and I'm ready for if you have any questions.
Outdoors, some of them, and most of them are on the internet, on the mobile.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll start with the second comment. I think, you know, today's game manufacturing company, they have full department for psychological minds, how people they think. And if you watch what people now they do in games, they try to socialize games like people they play with each other from remote areas. And I think this is to socialize game. I don't think this will happen. Still, you are playing alone with your machine. You're playing with your machine, though you are talking to a second person and you try to, but you are not really socializing. You are more desocializing the game, actually. So I do agree with you. So we need to encourage children. My idea was to have really a storybook for children. And in the middle of that storybook, when you open the middle part, a game pump for you from one of these games. And when people, they buy it for their children, when they visit Petra, and we have very nice story. I developed about the Qasr al-Bint, the princess, the daughter of Pharaoh. It's really very nice story, where I am thinking of in the middle of that story, when you open it, there's a game which will bump one of those and encourage people to play these games. And this we can really do some continuity, but still there are ideas of filming and full documentation can be made, maybe a documentary or a video movie on just games, going to these games and talking maybe with people, trying to understand, trying to connect these with contemporary games. But this can be done. This can be done. Yeah.
So we have a question online.
Yeah.
You find any of the games inside the tombs?
Inside, no, but in the stair, in the edge of the stair, like in the gate, main door, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's grab the microphone so we can catch it on the folks online.
Did you do any follow-up to see if they have identical games, for example, in Saudi Arabia, Al-Wala area, or in Wadi Rum area, and to these surrounding areas?
Myself, I'm a geoarchaeologist, and I'm more into prehistory and science application. I need people to do this. My idea is to raise the issue, make it public, and give chance to people to do this. We can offer the material, we offer the site, and for researcher who wants to do that, we are happy to help into that. But I didn't do really. I have to do other things.
All right, we'll take one, Zaydan.
Have a comment. I have a comment. First one, I need you to teach you that you never fear. We are the descendants of the Mars. This is not only my human, but also for their team and actually now. Let me discuss this. After the-
No, I'll be happy. I'll be happy just to believe in it directly. Yeah.
I mean, the problem-
Do you have questions about game boards, Zaydan?
By talking about the game, indeed, I see this as a completely right. For young talent, which started from the neurology up to nowadays. I can see only this is a Hapatian tradition. My father passed away a long time ago. And in the area of Hebron, they used to say Mangala, Bama, Battle Greens, and all these are the same things. I would like to say that these things, they are not specifically Nabatian, but they are Oriental. Thank you. Also, I want to show other things. They used to play those games in spring and summer only, and they were games for elder people, for young people, and for children. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think we should adjourn here and be able to go and have some more animated discussions, Zaydan, in the room next door. So another round of applause. Thank you, Bilal.
Thank you very much.
And if we can convince you, we'll have you come host a games day here when we all learn to play these games.
One or two.
Thank you.